Imagine how scary it would be to live in a world where you couldn't speak. If you were a child who couldn't speak yet, you don't have any control over what's happening around you, and you can't communicate with your parents or your caretakers to let them know what you want or what you need. Well, today I'm going to be talking about my favorite AAC app that gives children that cannot speak a voice. It gives them a way to make meaningful connections with those around them and help the world become a less scary place. So, if you are new to me, welcome. I am Carrie Clark, speech language pathologist and creator of the SLK curriculum, which is a full program for teaching communication skills to children, including functional communication, which is this whole idea of just having the words to communicate basic wants and needs with those around you. So we have a full curriculum for functional communication, and one of those curriculums is based on AAC. And so AAC is augmentative and alternative communication. It is basically just any form of communication that a child or a teen or an adult could use to connect and communicate with those around them if they're unable to speak words clearly enough for others to understand them. And so AAC is a huge field. If this is new to you, you're in for a treat. There's a lot that goes into this. So today I am narrowing it down to specifically my favorite AAC app, which I'm going to tell you all about, and I will be using today in the podcast to give you some ideas. We're going to talk about how the app works, how to use AAC apps to help a child or a teen learn to communicate. We're also going to talk about the best way to use AAC for our Gestalt Language Processors, if that's a term that you're familiar with. If not, stay tuned. So we're going to talk about all of that today. But the first thing I do want to address before we get started, because this is the question I always get, is will using some sort of AAC prevent a child from speaking? So the common fear is that we give this child a device where all they have to do is push a button and it speaks for them. And then the concern is, well, if it makes it so easy, won't it make it so that they don't want to speak and that they don't have a reason to speak? But here's the thing. The research does not support that at all. The research shows that, if anything, it actually speeds up speaking. And this is what I've seen from my own personal experience as well. So many times we've had a child who's not speaking. We try all the strategies. They're still not speaking. And we say, okay, let's go ahead and get an AAC device in place. Let's find the best one for this child. We go through the whole process. They use it for a couple weeks, and then all of a sudden they're speaking and they're starting to say words. And we say, what on earth happened? We just went through all the work to get this device. And the secret is that they learned the power of communication. And once all those pieces start to come together, if their mouth is capable of making those sounds and saying those words, that's always going to be faster than trying to find the picture, the button, whatever it is that they're looking for on their AAC device. So I promise you that the research does not show that it's going to prevent children from speaking, and in many cases, it actually does the opposite. So, what is AAC? Okay, like I said, AAC is literally any way we can help a child or a teen communicate that's not spoken speech. And so it includes sign language, it includes gestures, it includes pictures. But my favorite are these AAC apps. And so an AAC device is a screen where we push a button and it speaks a message, okay? At its simplest form, we have AAC devices that don't have a touch screen. It is literally just buttons, and we push those and they say a pre-programmed phrase. But the power of tablets, iPads, and apps is that now we can have these screens, we can have these devices on screens where it changes, right? You push I want and it pops up a menu of things you might want. And so it makes it even easier to use than having a static device that just has buttons. It opens up a lot more possibilities. Also, the fact that many of us have tablets in the home already makes this a far more accessible option, because it used to be that to get an AAC device with one of these screens, you had to pay thousands upon thousands of dollars. You had to go through a insurance nightmare to try to get this reimbursed, go through evaluations and all this. Now we can pop in and try one of these today because these are apps that are easy and accessible. So Yes, you should definitely still have somebody helping you with this process because there's a lot that goes into it. But the use of the AAC apps has just made it all the more accessible. Now, I will say there are a ton of AAC apps out there. By all means, do your research, but I'm going to tell you my favorite AAC app. And so if you want to try this one, it has a free trial, which makes it even easier to get started. So my favorite AAC app is Grid by Smartbox. So this is Grid, Grid by Smartbox. They have an iPad version, but they also have a Windows version, so it can go on a computer or any sort of smaller device that is running Windows. And so if you have the iPad version, the Grid app is free for 30 days. And then I believe it is $10.99 a month after that, like $10.99 per month after that. I think you can also buy the full license for like $300, and I'm not totally sure the differences on all of those, but it's a very easy, accessible way to get started, considering, the barrier of entry used to be multiple thousands of dollars to buy a device, right? If you already have an iPad, you can try this for free, which is super, super cool. And then the computer version or the Windows version, I think has a 60-day free trial even. So it's very easy to try it out and see if this is a good fit. But the reason that I love Grid and why it is my favorite AAC app is just the different features, the flexibility. There's so many different ways to use it. And I really feel like this company is doing an amazing job of finding ways to support AAC users and coming up with creative solutions to problems. So the reason, or the way I found out about Grid was actually at the ASHA convention in Boston. The last time it was in Boston, whenever that was, I was there and I had my booth. And I will tell you, my introverted people anxiety person that I am had a lot of trouble. It was a very overwhelming convention. There were, I don't know, hundreds, thousands of booths in this exhibit hall. It was so loud. There were so many people. And if any of you came by to say hello, God bless you. It was a lot. So if I looked like a deer in the headlights, that's probably why. But I had a lot of fun getting to connect with people. And the people that were in the booth next to me was Grid by Smartbox, or it was the Smartbox booth. And I had never even heard of them prior to this convention. But if you have ever been in an exhibit hall, you know that we say the same spiels over and over again, right? We start to say, oh, here's my introductory spiel. And then if someone asks questions, then you have your next script you end up saying. And so I heard the Grid spiel over and over and over again. And after several times, I was sitting there and I'm like, now I'm curious. And so in between, on our breaks, in between when there were rushes, I would be asking them questions and saying, okay, tell me about that part. And looking at all of their different devices and access methods. They have eye gaze where you can just look at the picture you want and it'll speak it. They have all these different things and they were all set up and you could play games on their stuff. It was very cool. So needless to say, by the end of it, I was sold. The things they were saying, the way they were presenting it, the answers they had to people's questions and concerns, I could just really tell that, number one, this was a company that cared. And number two, that the technology they were using is really, really good. And I love the way that the app is organized. I love how there's different options for accessibility. I love all of it. So we're going to talk through it today. But that's the one that I love. And that's how I found them, was sitting next to them at ASHA. Those ladies that were hanging out there were really cool too. So it was a good time. All right. So I'm going to talk about how this app works in particular, the Grid app, and then we're going to talk about how you use AAC to teach a child or a teen to communicate. And so even if you're not using the Grid app, if you have a different AAC app or a different system, this information will be helpful as well. And then we're also going to talk about how to write goals for AAC and how to use AAC with our Gestalt Language Processors. Okay, so let's dive in. All right, so how the app works. The thing I love about Grid is that it has multiple different grids, is what they call it, multiple different options of ways that you can set up the board. And they're all pre-set up. Some of the AAC apps, you have to go in and program a lot of stuff, but these have already been programmed and they are very, very effective. And so you choose the type of board that works best for the child. They have symbol boards. And so I have a symbol board pulled up right now. I'm just holding it up to the microphone. So you should be able to hear it. I know you can't see it. But the one I'm on right now has 50 buttons on the screen, which sounds like a lot, but they're organized really nicely. They're color coded and there's symbols on them. So it's easy to kind of see what you're looking for. You can also go through and hide things if you need to make it a little easier. There's also options with fewer buttons on the screen. But for example, I'm on the 51 and let's say I want to say,
I want some.
I want some. And then there's a way where we can speak the whole sentence.
I want some.
All right. And so you can, when you have this and you can play with it, you can see that there's all these different ways to make complete sentences, but you can also very easily just use single words like
help.
Help. You just need help. There are, different options for objects that you might want to request or actions that you might want to request. And so there's all these different options on here where you can either make sentences or just have them speak single words, okay? So those are symbol boards. They also have letter boards where you can actually type things, or text-based boards if you are working with a teenager or an adult who can read and understand text. That can be really effective. There's one really cute one already pre-programmed. I think they have a bunch of these, but they have a picture scene where it's a whole scene of like kids in a park. And then when you push bubbles on the side, then the child that has the bubbles blows the bubbles in the picture scene. So it actually makes the picture scene animate, which is a really great way to get younger children interested in it and understanding, oh, when I push this button, there is a cause and effect and something happens and that button has meaning, right? The bubbles makes the bubbles show up. And so it helps tie meaning in really well. There are even games you can play on this where there are like eye gaze games. So if you have a child who isn't able to use their finger, they can access the same boards, the same device with eye gaze by just looking at the thing that they want. And if they hover their eyes over it long enough, it'll activate. They can use a switch. And so there's different games you can play to teach them how to use eye gaze and switches and those kinds of things as well. So those are really cool. Also, that those are add-on hardwares that you would need to use. That doesn't come preloaded with the app version, but just know that that's available too. Now, the other thing I really like about this is for our Gestalt language processors. So if you are not familiar with this term, a Gestalt language processor is a child who is learning language in chunks. So these are our children who learn language through echolalia. They're repeating others. They're repeating things they've heard. They're not just saying one word at a time. They're saying whole sentences or whole scripts out of a movie, right? So these are our Gestalt language processors. And they're learning language differently, right? And so if we want to use AAC with a child who is a Gestalt language processor, maybe because they're not really able to get their message across with their Gestalts, or because their Gestalts are so hard to understand still that we're not able to make that connection, then we can actually use a pre-programmed, preloaded board on here that is perfect for Gestalt language processors because it's speaking in phrases instead of single words. So typically when we think of AAC apps, we're saying single words, right? And then we have them build sentences. Well, if that's not how the child's learning language, then that's not helpful. Just like we want to use different strategies when we're teaching them to speak and when we're modeling language, we can do that through the AAC app as well. So the page I'm on right now has phrases, right? So I can say,
can I ask you something?
Okay, so that's one button. They push one button and it says, can I ask you something? And then it pops up a whole bunch of questions that you can ask.
What is that?
What is that? So now we're giving them chunks of language, which fit more naturally in with how their brains work. And the really powerful thing about this is that our children who are Gestalt language processors tune into prosody. They tune into the pitch and the melody and the rhythm of speech. It's not about what the individual words mean by themselves. It's how it sounds. And so if we are giving them models,
what is that? What is that?
Listen, it's the same way every time.
What is that?
What is that? So they can start to tune into the piece that they're interested in, which is how it sounds. And now they have a model that sounds the same way every time, which makes it easier for them to repeat it, which is how they're learning language. Super, super powerful. We're going to talk more about GLPs in a minute. I didn't mean to go quite that far in depth yet. But yes, this grid has the option to set it up so it's more effective for GLPs as well. Okay, now the thing I want to remind you of here, if you're feeling overwhelmed or intimidated, there's no wrong way to do this. We are just trying things and seeing how the child responds. Just like every other type of speech therapy we do, it's all about having tools in your toolbox and giving them a try. So you don't have to know the perfect board. You don't have to get it right on your first try. You just have to have a mindset of curiosity and be willing to try things and then observe. See how the child does. If you're not sure if they're a Gestalt language processor, try the phrases for a couple times, try the single words for a couple times, see which one they do better with. That's all you have to do. Just try things and see how it goes. Okay, so let's talk now about how to teach a child to use AAC, how to model this, how to do all of the teaching parts of it, okay? So the very first step when we are teaching a child to use AAC, whether it is an app, a device, pictures, sign language, anything, we want to let them play. And this is a question I get a lot is I hear, oh, well, they're just pushing random buttons. Great. That's what we want them to do. Because what children do when they're learning to talk is they play with their sounds. They babble. They blah, 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 right? They're making sounds. They're figuring out what their mouth can do. They're playing. We want to let our children play with their AAC device and play with the words and play with the sounds and listen. What happens if I push this button? What happens if I push it again? Does it make the same sound? And so if they are, oh, my screen turned off. If they are sitting there saying the same word over and over and over again.
Go, 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 go.
It might be driving you nuts, but they are learning that, hey, time I push this thing says that, and it says it the exact same way every time. They're learning, even though it just sounds like play, even though it just looks like stimming, that's in air quotes. They're learning, okay? We learn through play. And so the very first step, just let them push the buttons. You push the buttons, they push the buttons. Just explore what it can do. And I will say also, you should also play with it. You should go through and go, well, what happens if I push this one? Put. Okay, no, nothing changed. Oh, no, it did. Look, there's 5 buttons at the top that changed when I had said put. And now I have the options to say here, there, down, some, or away. So put away. So I just learned something too. So that's part of it. You let them play, but you also should play with it. Even when they're not there, just play around with it, because the more you play with it, the more you'll figure out where the things are that they might want to say so that you can show them. All right. So step 1 is just play. Everybody gets to play. All right. Step 2 then is you can start tying the words coming out of the device to real meaning. Okay. So if they're saying,
go, go, go.
You are going to help them understand that that word go has a meaning in the real world too. It's not just making random noises. So you would say go. So you're imitating the device, right? Oh, go. Then you're going to respond. Where should we go? Let's go. And then you get up and go, show them that there is a real meaning tied to the word that just came out of the device. If they, push a button and it says car, see if you have a toy car that you can say, look, car, right? We're showing them that there is a real meaning behind the words coming out of the device. Now, I understand if they're just pushing buttons really fast, that's hard to do. We don't have to do it with every single word that comes out of this. But we want to try to find ways to help them see that there's a real meaning associated with the words that they're saying. So again, imitating what the device says, saying it back, responding, saying, oh yeah, let's see, what's another one that's on here? Feelings. Here are my feelings.
Happy.
Happy. I'm happy. I'm feeling happy that I'm playing with you, right? So we're giving them more information about those words. Or again, grabbing something in real life that represents that word can be really helpful as well. Okay. So we're letting them play, but we're starting to tie in the meanings to these words. And then we move on to step 3. And all of this is kind of happening at the same time, FYI. But we're going to model. So we are going to show them by pushing buttons that go along with the words that we're saying out loud. So we still want to be modeling spoken language, because for most of our children, that's also what we want them to shoot for, is being able to speak as well. We're not saying it's one or the other. We're saying both. And by us saying the word and pushing the button, that's going to help us model the words for them and show them multiple ways that they can communicate that message. Okay, so I'm sitting down, we're playing. One of my favorites is Marble Works. If you don't know what that is, it's like a little marble track where you build the track and then you put the marble at the top and it goes down. Okay, and so I use this one for go a lot, because I can have the marbles in my hand and I'll say, okay, let's make the marble go. Ready? Go.
Go.
And then I push the button on the device. I make sure the device is somewhere where they can see it, where they can access it, and that they can see me pushing go. And I might even push it a couple times.
Go.
Go! Marble, go.
Go.
And then I make the marble go. Okay? So I'm modeling. I'm saying things, and then I'm pushing the buttons that go along with that. Now, I don't have to push every button I say. I want to focus on some key words. And when I am looking at this home screen on the device right now on the AAC app, the words that are front and center on here are core words. These are words that you use every day, all day, every day in a lot of different situations and a lot of different scenarios. They can be used for multiple things, right? If I have cracker, the word cracker, that really is only applicable when there's a cracker around. But I can use go in like 100 different ways, right? 100 different activities where I can say we're going. So some of the keywords on here, we've got want, come, see, go, put, like, good, more, help. We've got the pronouns I, me, I, my, you. There's in, on, this, that. There's, I picked feeling. And so that took me back. It took me into a bunch of feelings. But there's all these little folders where you could say like, okay, here's some play words. Here's some chat words. Here's position words and places. And when you pick one of those, it opens up more on the side while keeping your main core words still there. Again, I love the way this is organized. Super, super easy to use. Okay, so we're modeling those core words. If you're unsure which words to model, just use the ones that are on the front of like the front page, the home page. Use those, okay? We're modeling by pushing the things as we're saying them. What are we on, 4th? The 4th step then is to create some communication temptations, opportunities for them to use it functionally to communicate. Okay, so maybe we say go a bunch of times, we model it, we've got our marbles in our hand, and we say, what should we do next? And then we wait. Okay, so we've set up a temptation. I have the marbles. We know that they're interested in watching them go down the track because they've been enjoying this. We have shown them where the word is, and now we wait. And sometimes it takes a long, long time. So be ready to just sit there for 30 seconds, a minute. Now, if they're getting frustrated, absolutely move on to prompting and cueing, and then just do it, right? And then model it and do it if they're getting frustrated. But if they're just looking at you or looking at the toy or looking at the device, you can almost like see the gears going, right? It's like, okay, I feel like there's something I need to do here to get what I want, and I'm not totally sure, but I'm going to think through it. And eventually I'm going to try something, right? If they reach for your hand where the marbles are, or they try to push your hand to do it, right? Then we can redirect them back towards the board or the app, okay? So we can say, what should we do? Should we go? And then we can either point at the picture, we can push the picture, we can tap the device, we can give them a little like tap on their arm to get them to kind of move towards the device. Any prompts or cues that you think might encourage them to push the button, go for it. Try it. Try a bunch of different things, right? I had one child who the first couple times I helped guide her hand to the right button. And then every time after that, she would like hold her hand out to me like, okay, put my hand on the button, right? And I would guide her to the button and then she would push it. And then we had to fade back that prompt, right? Because I didn't want it to be that I was always the one doing the pushing for her. And so then I would just tap her hand and then she would go push it. And then I would just move towards her hand, but I wouldn't tap, I wouldn't touch her. And then she would do it. And eventually she was able to do it without me prompting her. But that she was like, okay, this is what we do, right? You move my hand to the button. Oh, okay. Well, that's what we did, but now we're going to change it. And so just play around with what are some different ways that we can prompt them to push the button to get the outcome that they want. Okay, so we've set up the communication temptation and then we use those prompts. We encourage them to push the buttons. And if they don't, then we can still push the button, model it, and do it, right? Oh, go. Okay. Go. And then we make the marble go. And so they don't have to be perfect. They don't even have to do it for a while. We can just keep showing them. And then again, if you're not sure what board would be best, what approach would be best, try this one for a while. And if that doesn't work, then we can say, okay, let's try a different option. So maybe we go into the one that's better for GLPs. And I'm going to play around with this one. Let's see. Ooh, action words.
Go.
Okay, let's try that. How do I make it speak?
I want go.
Oh, I just touch it. I want go. So maybe they'll respond better to a phrase than a single word, right? So yeah, we can play around with that. I don't need to keep playing around with it on the podcast, but it's fun once you start to understand how the device works, understand the different things it can do, then you can play around with different stuff to see, again, what they respond to. Here's another one that I love on this. Let's see. Chat? Is it chat? Somewhere on here. And again, you just have to play around. Somewhere on here, there is a joke where you can actually tell jokes. And I think that's super. Oh, here, can I tell you?
Can I tell you something? A joke.
Okay. So can I tell you something? A joke. And then here's the jokes.
Why did the boy throw the butter out of the window? He wanted to see the butter fly.
Okay. So if you have a child who is understanding a lot of language, but maybe not able to communicate those things back out, then they can participate in these fun social interactions like telling jokes, which is super fun, right? There's so much that we can do with AAC apps. You get to customize it to what's meaningful to the child. But I'm looking at the time and I'm going way long because I love this topic. So let's keep moving. I want to make sure we hit goals and GLPs. Okay, so how do we write goals for AAC? And the reason this is important to this podcast topic is because I want you to understand this whole hierarchy of how this process works to teach a child to communicate, right? The end all be all is not just pushing buttons on a device. We want this to be meaningful. So in my AAC curriculum, I have broken this down into 3 levels: the beginner level, intermediate level, and advanced. So the beginner level is just communicate anything using the device, right? When we're just first starting out, we just want them to push a button intentionally to get a thing, right? To communicate something. And so when we write our goal for our beginner level, it's just that they will use language to communicate a certain number of times during a 10-minute interaction. And so you just start a timer for 10 minutes. You see how many times they communicate intentionally using language, whether it's AAC or spoken language or sign language, doesn't matter, just any form of language. And then you set your goal for higher than that, right? So that's your baseline. You say, okay, in a year, I want them to be able to do it twice that many times or 3 times as many, and you write the goal for that, okay? So that's the beginner level. Once they can communicate something, anything, doesn't matter what, they get to pick. Then we want them to expand their communication to express a variety of different things. And so at the intermediate level, we write the goal as expressing a variety of different communicative intents using AAC or spoken language, right? We're still including that spoken language in the goal so that if they start talking, we can still keep this same goal. But now we want them to express a number of different communicative ideas, right? So those kinds of things are rejection or cessation, saying stop or all done or I don't want that. Recurrence, asking for more, asking for something again. Using action words or attributes or possessions or greetings or questions or responses, all these different types of communication, right? So we start with, we just want you to communicate anything. Then we want you to communicate a variety of things. And then at the advanced level, we look at using their AAC, again, or spoken language, to produce 2-word combinations or to string communication together. So if they're using phrases, then we're using multiple phrases. This is basically saying we want them to push multiple buttons in a row to communicate a more complex idea. But that might look different depending on the settings you have, depending on the types of boards that you're using. But the whole idea is that they're doing that to either comment or ask or respond something meaningful and functional to them. All right. So that is my AAC hierarchy of goals. Inside the curriculum, we have a packet for each one of those levels, for each one of those goals. It includes a data probe to help you collect data on how they're doing and all the therapy materials and activities you need to teach those. So you can find those over at hub.speechandlanguagekids.com. But once you get through this, one of two things is going to happen. Either they start speaking because they've learned the power of communication, or if speaking still is not an option, now they have a functional system of communication where they can use this AAC app or device or whatever it is to communicate. Now we can start working on other goals, harder goals, different communication skills, and we're just using their AAC device as the mode. Okay, so you might go into our language curriculums and choose our asking and answering questions curriculum. But instead of answering the questions out loud, they're using their device to answer the questions, right? Or you might go into the sequencing and retelling and you ask them to tell you about their weekend, but you're having them use the buttons on their device. And so the device can grow with them. The app that the Grid company has made grows nicely because it has very simple boards. It has very complex boards. You can communicate a lot of different things depending on the level of the child. All right. Okay, so before we hop off, I do want to talk real quick about GLPs. I mentioned this earlier, but our Gestalt Language Processors are those kids who are learning language in chunks. So I love AAC for this because those early gestalts are usually difficult to understand. The speech clarity is not there. Often it's not there because the child is more tuned into the intonation, the melody of how it sounds. So you might hear them say, and so it sounds like real speech, but the speech sounds themselves are unclear because that's not the part that's important to them. They're more tuned into the melody, right? And so if that's the case, even if they are saying things intentionally, we may not be able to understand what they are yet. And so having some way for them to push a button that reflects what they want is going to give them another way to communicate. And then it's got this double benefit of giving them a model that they are going to be more primed to repeat. Because a lot of times what we'll see with these Gestalt language processors is that they're repeating shows that they've watched, or a toy that makes a certain sound. It says, "Welcome to the ABC Learning Lab." And they say that, right? Because when they hear the same phrase spoken the same way over and over again, it sticks in their brain better. When we say things, we say them differently every time. That honestly makes it more confusing. And so we have this double effect, right? Where we're giving them a way to communicate their wants and needs. That's going to reduce their frustration because they're no longer feeling out of control. But then that's also going to give them models that they can then repeat to improve their speech clarity, to improve their ability to communicate with us using their spoken words. It's a win-win-win, and I love it. Okay, so Gestalt language processors, this is great for them too. You just want to use a different set, a different board set that includes phrases and, if possible, more intonation variability so that it sounds more melodic. There's more variance in highs and lows, and that's going to stick better for those children. Okay? All right, I am going to stop. That was a long one. Sorry. I love talking about AAC. So if you have any questions about AAC, I would love to talk to you. You can email me at carrie@speechandlanguagekids.com, but you can also hop in and grab our AAC curriculums and therapy activities. We have some simple AAC boards in there as well. All of that is located inside our curriculum at hub.speechandlanguagekids.com. That's HUB. We do have a free trial. You can try it out for 7 days for free, and then it's just $50 a month after that. That gets you access to all of our curriculums, not just the AAC, not just the functional communication, but all of them across the spectrum. That also gets you our courses, our AI material generators, and access to our discussion board where you can ask questions and get support as well. All right, I hope to see you on the inside. And if not, I'll see you on tomorrow's episode of the Speech and Language Kids podcast. Bye for now.